Well, it's top of the hour, so we're going to kick off. So thank you all for joining. This is Reboot Your Love Life. We had a session a few weeks ago, part one, and this is the continuation. And I've gotten some really great feedback. So thank you all who've written into me. I'm just going to do a quick intro, and then we're going to go into the content of the session. And then I'm going to also wrap up with some information about how you can find out more about the work that we're doing here on this call and how you can join my community. So, with that, I just want to say welcome and introduce myself. So, my name is Dessi Schachne. I am a dating and relationship coach. And I wanted to kick off with something a little personal. I didn't become a coach because I have a fairy tale love story. And I didn't choose this kind of work because love came effortless to me or finding a partner came effortless. I chose it because I know what it feels like to rebuild your life. I've moved in across several foreign countries. I've lived in several countries. I've gone through divorce. I've had several career transitions. I've raised three kids as a single mom. And I have reinvented myself more than once. And what I've learned is that starting over requires courage, but especially in love. And dating isn't hard because it's we're incapable of doing it or we're incapable of learning the skill. It's hard because it exposes us and it brings uncertainty. It brings rejection, ambiguity, hope, disappointment. And when that happens, our minds get kind of loud and we start to overthink. We start to compare. Like, what are other people doing? How come they have something that I don't have? We start to try to read people's minds. What do they mean by this text? Why haven't I heard from them? They must be thinking XYZ, right? We have no idea, but we're trying to mind read. We judge them. We avoid doing things. We perform. And then we conclude that dating is broken, dating doesn't work, it's too much work, and it's just not worth it. And and so what I've discovered in my own life, but also working with my clients, is that dating struggles are rarely about the tactics or even the circumstances that are find yourself in. It's not the app, it's not the algorithm, and it's not that you're not, going into the right bar. It is protection. It is that we're dating from a very defended place. And protection is smart, but it quietly keeps us alone. And so, what I want to do in this session is really unpack the understanding of what is trying to keep you safe. So, is protection hurting you or actually helping you? And so that's going to be the first part of the session. And then the second part will be how do we go about meeting someone organically versus all the other ways? But no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're hopeful, whether you're exhausted or skeptical or excited, I hope that you're going to find something that you will take away from this session. And I just want to say that because you are here tonight, it means that some part of you still wants connection, right? And that part of you deserves attention. I just want to celebrate that part of you that is here tonight, that is willing to learn and willing to be in it, willing to understand what can I do more? What can I do better? What am I doing now that's working? What am I doing now that's not working? Okay, and we're going to be using the chat. So just a little bit of housekeeping. I'll be asking a lot of questions tonight. You can use the chat to submit your responses. And if someone does feel compelled to come on and speak to me live, please raise your hand so I can bring you on. Don't just jump in. So I do ask that you guys raise your hands and I'll try to get to as many of you as I can. Okay, so the first part is, the core pain that I hear often is that dating feels hard, especially as we get older. And why is that? Why is it hard as we get older? What do you guys think? Can you tell me in the chat what makes dating hard with age? Dating pool is getting smaller, people are set in their ways. Yeah, fewer options. Yes, we're more defensive. There's baggage, rejection. Yes, so we have high standards and there's wounded people. It's harder to meet people. Yeah. So essentially, it gets harder because we have lived a longer life and we've had that many more experiences that may have been disappointing, that we may have perceived in a negative way. And so that starts to build up. That starts to impact our self-confidence. That starts to, impact how do we approach the dating scene? How do we approach someone new? We stop looking at things through the lens of curiosity and playfulness and openness, and we start to look through it through our past experience. And we make our past experience the referent for what is possible for us in the future and what isn't. And so, why, if you can type in the chat for me, what is or what are some of the most common emotions that you experience throughout your dating journey? What are some of the common emotions that you feel? Okay. Frustration, insecurity, hope, disappointment, anxiety, fear, confusion, insecurity, anxiety, disappointment, rejection, sadness, fear of scammers.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't ask what are the negative emotions that you feel. I just asked what are some of the emotions that you feel around dating. And I am seeing 90% of these emotions are skewing towards the negative, right? There are very few people that are excited about it. Very few people are saying that they're having a great time, that they're looking forward to it. So, so I just want to ask you, when you pick one negative emotion that is maybe the most common one that you tend to feel, and just like, think about that for a second. Just drop into that emotion for a minute. When you are sitting in that negative emotion, especially if you're in it for a long time, what impact does that emotion have on your well-being, on your effectiveness dating, on your mood, on your energy level? Like, what is the impact of carrying and sitting in that negative emotion? What happens? What happens to your well-being? What happens to your motivation, to your energy?
Deflate.
Exhausted, deflated, draining. Yeah. So what happens when we sit in these discouraged, right? What happens when we sit and dwell in those negative emotions? We impact our well-being. We increase our stress levels. We increase our anxiety. We do not feel as motivated. We do not feel as energized anymore, right? And so we know that sitting for too long in negative emotions actually is going to have the opposite effect of what we want, which is that we want to create something in our life. We want to meet our person. We want to take action towards the goal that we have set for ourselves. So I'm just going to make a pretty bold claim right now, which is to say that the impact of our negative emotions, especially if we sit in them for longer than a few seconds, is the equivalent of self-sabotage. So we're actively self-sabotaging ourselves by staying in that prolonged negative state.
Well,
Yeah, and the most common negative emotion that people experience is stress. So, as you can all imagine, we've all had stress, sometimes more, sometimes less. But it is one of the biggest causes, obviously, of health issues. And again, like it is a lot of the time, stress, we stay in those negative emotions, not because we want to, we just don't think we have a choice, right? But negative emotions are not our enemy. Just want to say that. They are just a signal, kind of like pain. Like when you put your hand on a hot stove, you're going to feel the sensation of pain, right? But, how long do you want to keep your hand there? I mean, is it helpful to feel that sensation? Is pain helpful? It's helpful, right? But only for a few seconds. I mean, not if you keep it there, for an hour or two or a week. So it's similar with negative emotions. They signal something to us that we need to pay attention to. They're kind of like an alert that rings in our head. But it's an alert that we want to pay attention to, and then we want to shift into a different region of the brain, the region of the brain that is clear, that is calm, that is wiser. This is the more developed, the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And we want to take action from that part instead of from the part that is so-called sabotaging what we actually want. Okay, so last time when we met, I introduced the 10 saboteurs. These are the 10 subconscious patterns that were developed as a coping mechanism for us to cope with things when we were younger and we didn't really know any better. And, today what I want to do is I want to get into that a little bit more and cover how these saboteurs, like the three ways that they protect us in from actually taking the action that we want to take in our dating lives to create the outcome that we want. Okay, so I'm going to share a document here with you. Give me a second. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Let me just. In the meantime, while I try to get this up, Marcin, you have your hand up. Do you
Yes,
have a question?
Martin from Madison, Illinois. I wanted to mention, I actually put it on the chat, fear of success. Like sometimes it works and you're like, I'm gonna have a date, and it's like, what am I gonna do now? It's like, I don't know how to proceed now. Yeah. It's
Mhm.
like there's more frustration because of success than because of the failure. Because the failure, you're used to the failure, but you're not, you're surprised by success.
Well, that's actually really insightful that you would say that because in many areas of life, we want something, but we fear actually getting it. Like we want that new job, but then we're also kind of resisting it because then we feel like, well, what if I can't handle it? What if I can't meet expectations, right? We want to try something new. We want to start, a new hobby or a new sport, but then we're also afraid of, well, what if we're not going to be able to do it? What if we fail and we just can't learn how to ski or how to play the piano or how to learn a language? And so this is super, super common. Super common to do that. I'm just going to address something that I'm seeing here in the chat that where do you meet people is something that is very tactical, and we're not going to address that tonight. So obviously you're all here tonight and you're going to get to meet each other. So this is an opportunity for you to meet other people, but we're going to have other sessions where I will go into the tactics of dating and give you guys ideas and ways to think about how you can meet each other. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me just wanted to go here and share the slide. So this slide is something that I showed last time. So these are the 10 saboteurs. These are the 10 mental patterns that operate inside each one of us. We all have them to some degree. Some are more pronounced, others are less pronounced. You've got the judge, that's the inner critic. And we all know what the inner critic is saying about ourselves, about dating situation, about other people. But then we have these other saboteurs. We have the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, the pleaser, the victim, etc. So you can see how these mental patterns operate in the background subconsciously as we're navigating the dating scene. And I wanted to go through the three ways that they are trying to protect us from actually getting what we want out of dating. So the three patterns that they operate under are they criticize, avoid and blame, and then control and perform. And so each one of these dating patterns lives in one of those buckets. So how do they criticize? So what does criticize mean? If we think about the judge, the perfectionist, the hypervigilant, or the hyperrational, what that sounds like in dating is there's just no one good out there anymore. Or I am not attractive enough, or maybe the people I meet are just not the right people for me. I should have figured this out by now. Online dating is a disaster or something is just wrong with me. And so these are just some of the ways that the inner critic or even, the hypervigilant, which might be, all of the people out there are scammers or I just can't trust anyone anymore. These are just some of the patterns that keep us safe, keep us, in our cave. And the strategy is that if I criticize first, I will not get hurt, right? And so you actually reject the opportunity, you reject the person before you can be rejected. So that's one of the coping mechanisms. And the cost of that is that you don't stay open enough to actually see if there's a real connection, to build a real connection with the person that's in front of you. Let me know in the chat if you see yourself in any of these patterns in the criticize bucket. Do you see yourself as someone that judges people very quickly? Or that you want people to behave in a specific way, the way you think is the proper etiquette? Or maybe if you're hypervigilant, you might be super sensitive to, is this a real person? Are they trying to scam me? Are their intentions, you know, honest, etc.? I don't know. I don't think I can see the chat while I'm sharing, so I'm just gonna move on. Okay. The next bucket is the avoider bucket. This is people who tend to distance or distract instead of take action. So protection looks like delaying doing something, maybe delaying starting to date, getting yourself, back into the game again. It could be distraction. Maybe you want to just date multiple people because you're just not wanting to commit to any one person. So, you kind of want to keep your options open. Or maybe you're blaming circumstances, geography, or, other people for the fact that dating is just not working out for you. So in this bucket, this includes the avoider, the restless, and the victim. And it sounds like I'm fine alone. I don't need anyone. I have a good life, so I'm not going to even try. Or I'm just going to start next month. I'm not ready. I'm just going to, I just need a little more time. I'm going to start next month. Or it could look like, let's see where this goes. I don't really know what I want from a relationship, but I just want to see where it goes. So it's kind of non-committal. Some people in this bucket might feel like ghosting is more appropriate instead of saying just outright, directly informing your match that you're not a match with them. So this is avoiding kind of having a difficult conversation. And maybe you pull back when things start to feel too intense, like when it's starting to really get into the deeper stage of dating. So this is just a few of the patterns that come up when you are in the avoider or the restless or the victim energy. And the strategy here is that you're not fully engaged. And because you're not fully engaged, you just can't lose, right? So this is a little bit like what Marson said when he said, what if you have fear of success? Well, if your fear is keeping you from actually going for it, then you can't lose, right? You can't lose because you can't be rejected, but you're not winning either because ultimately you're not getting the partner that you're looking for. So the cost is that nothing actually ever starts to build. That is how these saboteurs are keeping you back. And let me know again in the chat. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see your comments. Does anyone recognize themselves in the avoider or in the restless or the victim? Yeah, people are saying yes, the avoider, absolutely. The restless, the avoider, definitely the restless. Nope. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the restless is a tricky one because the restless is essentially someone who always likes to do, they're so interested in different things, they get bored easily. So one way that could show up in dating is that after they get to know someone to some degree, they kind of get bored with that person, then they feel the need for novelty. And so they want to move on and, date someone new. They're thinking, well, what if there's someone better out there? So they have this level of FOMO that drives them. And that's how that plays out. Yeah. I mean, you can be an avoider and not present with every single one of these things. But, if the pattern is that you avoid conflict, you avoid hard conversations, you avoid doing things that are not that are not going to give you immediate pleasure, right? I mean, that's really what the avoider ultimately is. It's avoiding doing something hard now and postponing it to doing it later. Yeah, I'm fine alone. Right. Okay. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, so let's move on. So the last bucket is people who present with control and perform, right? They're trying to manage the outcome. So this is when protection looks like you want to manage what happens, you want to impress, and to some degree, maybe you're even over functioning, right? You're trying to take control of the situation. And the saboteurs that fall into this category are the controller, the pleaser, and the hyperachiever. So the way this would look is it would sound like if I just did this right, it would have worked. If I had just asked out the right person, the date would have happened. Or if I had just worn the right outfit, the outcome would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
So another way it can present is over texting and tracking the response time of someone. How soon do they get back to you? Right? You're trying to almost micromanage and read into the response time. You plan your future even though you don't even know the person yet. You're trying to create an outcome, of what will happen with this person before you even give them, like more than one date. You're trying to be impressive. This is the hyperachiever, right? The hyperachiever also always wants to exceed expectations and tries to impress. But the hyperachiever is also one that will say, I want someone that is impressive to my friends, right? Not just that I am impressed with, I want to be with someone impressive to my friends. So they will be evaluating people from that standpoint as well. And then the other one in this bucket is the pleaser. So the pleaser is essentially molding themselves in a way that they are going to be liked. They want to make sure that they achieve the goal of being liked. So they will, shape shift, they will mold, they will kind of contort themselves and say things or do things that they may not actually, feel authentic about. And then the controller will be micromanaging the pace, Well, when is our next date? Well, where are we meeting? Well, what time is it going to be? Well, what kind of food are we having? So they want to know all the details, all the things, they want to know them way in advance. And this can come both, from both men and women do this type of thing. So it's not just specific to a gender. And then the need for certainty. So the strategy is that if I can control the outcome, I will not be hurt. I will not be blindsided. The more control I have, the better. And it keeps you safe because you have the sense of being powerful and in control instead of vulnerable. But the cost is that instead of connecting with the person, you are in this evaluation energy. You kind of feel the pressure, to do things a specific way. And so you're kind of always in your head instead of dropping down and actually understanding, well, who is this person? Let me connect with them. Let me see, are they actually right for me? Maybe this is not a connection I want to pursue. So that would be the controller, pleaser, and hyperachiever energy. So let me know, guys, who feels that that is them. Anyone feeling like they are trying to control the outcome, that they want certain things done a specific way, that they are, some people like the hyperachiever might even say, well, if I can have X number of dates a week or X number of dates a month, even if they're not the appropriate types of dates, they will feel like at least I'm getting the dates in, right? They're kind of achieving they're getting a sense of like I have some data points here that I can work with. Yeah, if you do it just right, it will work 100%, right? If you wear the right thing, if you say the right thing, if you order the right dish, if invite someone in the right way. Yeah, so we're all trying to, and the hyperachievers sometimes is sneaky because they can show up as very performative. They're very entertaining. I mean, they love to entertain people, and so they feel like they're, this quality that they bring of entertaining is somehow deserving of getting the other person's attention or commitment or interest. And so, if we can be in that entertainment mode, somehow we feel like that is going to protect us. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me go back and keep going here. So what can we do about these patterns? What is the solution to all of this, right? Because every single one of these strategies has some intelligence, right? It is it intelligent to a point, but then it doesn't always serves us. The intelligence is that it's developed to protect you from things like rejection or shame or abandonment, disappointment, uncertainty. And it's not that these are flaws, it's just that these are outdated survival strategies. All of the saboteurs live in the survival part of the brain, right? This is the brain that's evolved over the years to keep us safe, to keep us alive. And so they originate from that primitive limbic system, from the survival brain. And the truth is that protection reduces pain in the short term, but it also reduces intimacy and it doesn't serve what we actually want in life. So, just a quick recap about your saboteurs. Every one of them, and these are just parts of you, right? These are patterns that everyone has, and some of them are more dominant in you than others, but they are actively trying to protect you from pain. And so, the way the judge protects from pain is, it protects you from rejection by rejecting first, by criticizing first. The avoider protects from uncomfortable emotions. The controller protects from uncertainty and vulnerability, from, actually being emotional and revealing your authenticity. The hyperachiever protects from feeling unworthy. The hyperrational protects from messy emotions. The hypervigilant protects you from danger and betrayal. The pleaser protects you from abandonment. And the restless protects you from commitment and depth. And the stickler protects you from settling or making a mistake. And lastly, the victim protects you from taking risk and being responsible for your actions.
Mhm.
So here's what these saboteurs don't understand, that we do not need protection from love. We need the courage to take risk and to open our hearts to someone new. And then we need to have our own, whether we get rejected, whether we get, someone decides that they ghost us, whether someone gets angry, whether we cannot control what happens, but we know that we are doing something that we want for ourselves. And there is no way around it other than being vulnerable, being yourself, opening yourself up to someone, and knowing that there is no one that can hurt you as much as you can hurt yourself with your own thinking.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to pause for a minute and unshare. So I want to stop here for a second. Yeah, Nicole, you have a question. Go ahead. Or maybe not. Nicole doesn't have a question. Okay. Marcin, you have a question.
Actually, it wasn't a question. I was just answering your question. You said that how can we protect ourselves from these saboteurs? And I am secretary of Adult Children of Alcoholics support group, and we have a serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the wisdom. The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's so hard to get there. Because we want to just like, especially if you are a high controller like I am, you just want everything to work out. And you think that like, what if I did something else? Like what if I may have done this? If I only did this, then just like I put in the chat, it's like it's hard to just let go and just say, hey, whatever happens, happens. Let the chips fall where they may. I like to say that, but not often I am really honest with I'm just going to let it go. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we know certain things on the analytical level, We just haven't quite absorbed it at the level of embodiment in order to actually do the thing that we know we're supposed to do. And so it kind of, stays in a certain area of like the intellectual part of us. But there are definitely lots of, I mean, the wisdom that you have in that circle, I think, can translate into many areas of life. So, like you mentioned, that prayer. Yeah, and of course, I think the difference here is that we need to distinguish between when are we being, kind of hijacked by our saboteurs versus actual discernment. Because of course there are bad people out there. Because sometimes, circumstances are such that we can't always think positively about them. There are definitely things in life that are outside of our control that are not that kind of can't be helped. And so we need to really practice being discerning versus when are we getting interference from our saboteurs, right? And so that is work that we do in the program that I run in the positive intelligence program in order to identify like what is true discernment versus what is self-sabotage and how do we self-sabotage. And again, like dating is just one area of life where this manifests. I mean, these patterns carry through into every area of life, so because the way we do one thing is how we do everything. So it carries into your work, into your relationships with family, friends, into, like, do you sabotage if you decide to lose weight? Do you sabotage if you decide to start something new? I mean, they kind of translate across the board. So, okay, let's see. Red Panda, that's your name. What's your question?
Off topic, multiple people have their audio on and it's cutting over what you're saying. Are you able to cut everybody's audio off?
Yeah, I haven't heard that much interference, but
Oh,
I can definitely mute
that was
all.
it.
Okay, thank you for the heads up. I just muted everyone. Okay, Eric, you have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you could elaborate on the and having your own back no matter what.
Yeah. So having your back no matter what means that when you go out in a dating scenario and you do something vulnerable, you ask someone out on a date and maybe they say no. You, message someone and you don't hear back from them. You, whatever that thing is that you do because you take a step towards meeting someone new, inviting someone new, etc. And if you get a response from them that is not what you had hoped for, you have your own back, meaning you do not beat up on yourself. You don't make it mean that you're no good, that you're not enough, that you're not worthy, that you're unlovable. You do not do any of that. You have your own back. You love yourself and you know that you're on the right path for you and people will do whatever they do and the right person, the person that is right for you is not going to reject you, is not going to say something rude, is not going to ghost you. Just know that this is information. It is not personal. I think lots of times we get wrapped up in or rather our egos get wrapped up in the way other people respond. And we seek this external validation. Oh, if so and so, agrees to go out with me, or if so and so says something nice about me, it validates that I am that way. That's seeking external validation. But we know that we're all 100% worthy exactly as we are. We do not need to look for that validation outside. Does it help? I mean, yes, for sure it helps. I am guilty of it too. I know that it feels good when you get a compliment, when you're praised, when you're admired. Of course it feels good. In dating, though, nothing is guaranteed. And so we're going to get, and of course, because we are not going to be a match for most of the people that we meet are not going to be the right match for us, it is more likely that we're going to hear a no rather than a yes. So the point is that when you do hear a no, you have some way of regulating your system, of, doing some kind of ritual or something where you shake off, the emotion, whatever that emotion might be, the disappointment, the embarrassment, the rejection, so that it doesn't, bring you down, so it doesn't go carry you into your day, it doesn't carry you into the week, right? Because that is the whole point. That's what I meant by when you sit in negative emotion for longer than a few seconds, you're self-sabotaging. It is a choice. It is a choice for us to say, you know what? I am disappointed. This didn't work out. You know what? I did have my hopes up and it didn't happen with this person. And that's fine. I mean, we can mourn, we can be sad. We just don't want it to be something that we indulge in for so long that it actually removes our capacity to focus on what we really want. Okay. I'm going to take one more question and then we're going to go into breakout rooms, guys, because I do have a mini exercise for you and I want you all to have a little bit of connection with each other. So, Gabriel.
Yes. First, wonderful presentation. And my question is based on your summary slide, which seems to show the different protections and levels of protections. How does a trauma-based protection be overcome with a relationship, or is that something that needs to be further investigated on a deeper level?
So, yeah, I mean, so depends on, there are different types of traumas. There's what we call big T trauma and little T traumas. Big T traumas are, what you guys can imagine what they are. They're like really deep, very wounding types of traumas that you will want to work with a professional, a counselor, a therapist, etc., in order to resolve that type of trauma. In coaching, which is what I do, especially in this, dating relationship coaching, I mostly deal with small T. But in the end, small T trauma, I mean, for everyone, one situation might be a small T for someone and a big T for another person. So it's objective as far as what you perceive to be small T. Small T trauma might be, I had a messy divorce and, my husband cheated on me and I can't trust men anymore. I can work with people on rebuilding trust, understanding betrayal, understanding, kind of uncoupling the story from your own emotions. And so I work with clients on an emotional level, on a subconscious level. We get into what the trauma is and the situation that created the trauma and we made it mean about us. Because in the end, that's really what trauma is we make meaning out of an event that happened and we create meaning about our own identity. Who are we? Why did it happen to me? We all have some degree of baggage and woundedness and combination of little t traumas. That's a separate type of work from the work of the mental saboteurs, which are just patterns of behavior. And by the way, the mental saboteurs did originate because of some trauma that happened in your life. If you know that typically, and this happens mostly from you carry these saboteurs from childhood. So if you had a very, very parent in childhood, and maybe that strict parent required of you to do things very specifically, and if you didn't do them a certain way, you got into trouble. Maybe that's why your stickler developed, and you became a perfectionist because that was what you were taught, that you were worthy as a human if you did things perfectly. And that's coming from trauma from, childhood. So again, there's definitely crossover between traumas and these patterns. Okay, cool. So let's see, we have 147 people on here. I'm going to put you into groups of 4, and I'm going to give you 4 minutes each. So that's going to be 16 minutes in total, 15 or 16 minutes for the entire breakout session. If you can share which of these sabotaging patterns do you see in yourself, especially which one do you find that most resonates? And how is that pattern keeping you safe? How does this saboteur present most commonly in your own pattern? And what is it costing you? Okay, guys, I'm sending you into your breakouts and I'm going to meet you back here in about 15 minutes.
Hello.
Yeah, first of all, This is a great presentation. I think your slides were fantastic. The information you provided was very edifying as far as what I call searching in myself. What I find is that I've followed 99% of what you're talking about, and I've failed to make any kind of a connection. Speed dating, organic, going out, that's not the issue. What my question is going forward, moving each step as I go through this journey, where do I find the energy to continue? That, after all these failures, where do I look to find that energy to keep moving on?
Well, I think, Gabriel, I think it comes from your vision. I mean, it comes from creating a vision for what you want and knowing that that is possible for you, and knowing that, the desire for connection, the desire for partnership is very human. Can we live without it? Of course, we can live without it. Do we want to live without it? I think most people want to have a partner. And so I think the question to ask is it worth it? Is it worth me finding the energy, making space for the energy, conserving my energy so that I do have it to apply it to something that matters to me? I mean, think about all the energy we spend on things that do not, give us the same fulfillment as a partner. All the chores we do, all the hours at the DMV. We spend so much energy on things that, we just know we have to do it. But in the end, I think this is something and again, like everyone has to decide for themselves, like how much is enough, But if there's a desire in you to meet someone, I think that you should make space for that and make it a priority.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to end with I'd like to further invest in what you have to offer, because from this program, you're very intuitive. You're definitely aligned with where most of the people are with what they want to find. And so, where can I find more information about you?
Yeah, so I am going to give you a link where you can book a consultation with me, and then we can meet and chat, and then we can take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. So, and this is, by the way, you guys are invited to do this as well. I will share my scheduler link here. If you wish to book a 30-minute consultation, you can just hit the link and find a time that works for you. And I do encourage everyone to take the saboteur assessment so that we can also take a look at the results from that assessment. It's going to be in the link. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for attending and for hanging on for so long. And I do appreciate all of you coming here and participating. And I will be talking to you soon.